This is Charlie Parsons for the Stomping Ground. Delighted to be joined this evening on Zoom with Francis Smith. As I can hear about a million people around you the minute we've started recording, Francis.
Can you?
I can. It's
Is it
okay.
that loud?
No, it's okay. Now you're crisp.
Perfect.
Why?
I'm at the Caribe Royale.
Very nice.
Wonderful, mate. Where are
Weather,
you?
weather than I'm in the lovely Cirencester.
Oh, wonderful. The weather is better than England, although slightly chilly in the morning.
Oh, well, I
Hmm.
will add that to your complaint list. What have you
Hmm.
been saying, Francis?
I've been good, mate. I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good few days out in Orlando, mate. Making a lot of things happen. Things are exciting. Looking forward to the next 9 weeks of non-stop madness, starting on Saturday with Jordan Thompson tomorrow, and Lenny Apero. What a fight!
Have you allowed yourself a little plan after Ghana for what's Christmas and the
I'm
New
going
Year?
to I'm going to Riyadh for
Oh, of
Christmas.
course you are. Are
Yes,
you
yes.
there on
So
Christmas Day?
yes,
Good on
yes.
you, mate. Supporting the cause.
Mm. But it's a big show. They're all Japanese or mostly Japanese card. It's going to be a big night. But Christmas Day, Christmas Day for a little few media events, perfect.
You're absolutely caking it in, mate. So I'm not going to pretend I feel for you.
Taking it in. What does that mean? Is that financial?
Securing the bag.
Yeah, I mean,
Ha!
who knows? It's not about the money. It's
It, fuck,
passion.
it fucking is, mate. Poro versus Thompson. I'm so baffled by that photo that's gone up of you and Jordan. By the way, I thought it was a bit of a piss take at first.
I've got great legs. I've always had good thighs, even since a 3-year-old kid, to be fair. I mean, I'm the only one who can say that because it'd be weird if anyone else said that. Um, yeah, I've known him. My mum was best friends with Jordan's mum. So in the early years of our life, we grew up together. And then as we got older, as with anything, obviously he lived in Manchester, I lived in Essex, so we saw each other less and less. And then when I started working, I really, at that period, didn't really see anyone. And then after about 10 years, I'd say of working in boxing, someone said to me, I think it was Nissa Sowland actually, said, "We promote," because he used to be with Wasserman, "We promote a fighter who knows you very well." And I was like, all right, you know. And he showed me a picture of me and Jordan. That picture, he showed me that picture of us, and he was like, "Jordan Thompson." And this was, I don't know, 6 years ago, something like that. And then obviously here we are today, Orlando. Um, it's mad how the world goes round, really mad. And his family obviously very successful in sport. His dad in karate and his mum, champions, been to the Olympics, etc. So yeah, it's a mad little story.
That is a mad little story. Does that mean that despite the fact you have Poro, you'll be secretly hoping that he gets the job done tomorrow?
It's a great fight. Our job is, as I always say, it's about making great fights, about making the best fights. I'm close with Jordan. Lenia, I haven't got I haven't got pictures as kids
You're
together
not good.
with
You're not
him.
good pals with Lenia?
No, we didn't grow up together.
No.
But look, fair play for him taking the fight as well, though. Jordan, going jumping straight back in there. He looks huge. I think he was 238 pounds in the weigh-in today. He's in unbelievable shape and he punches very hard. And if he can get a win against this guy on Saturday, he puts himself in a great position in the heavyweight division.
We are obviously gearing up for the huge matter of a rematch at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. You ended up involved in press conferences, and I remember it being a very chaotic fight week for you. Off the back of that, Chris Eubank Jr. came out, and Matchroom was stopping the ambulance for leaving and stuff like that. Without meaning to pry, it's obviously a more personal matter when it comes to kind of yourself. Are you looking forward to this whole saga being done a little bit?
Completely. I'll be honest with you. Look, I always called for the fight. I always said it was the biggest fight out there. So, I've only got partly myself to blame for pushing it as well. Um, but it was the biggest fight to be made. It was the huge fight the first time around. It's going to be huge this time around as well. I'm looking forward to it being over. Of course, I am. There's the boxing element and there's the personal element to it. And I'm looking forward to it all being out of the way, and come November 16th, hopefully I don't have to hear about it again. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more drama, a lot more shenanigans between now and then. It's Chris Eubank Jr. It's what he does. Um, but yeah, November 16th, it's all out of the way.
After November the 16th, is there a world where you do sit around that Christmas table again?
I don't know. Like, I'm quite a chill guy, but I haven't said anything about him. I've said that in every interview I've ever done. When I've been asked, I've never said anything detrimental about him. I said in an interview yesterday, he acts like a victim because he does. He goes on about promoters, this, that, the other. But sometimes you have to look at yourself. But I've never called him like he has a scumbag. I've never said I don't like him. You know, um, so for me, it's not really on me, to be honest. I don't have an ego. I'm not sitting there going, whoa, how could this man do this? It's like, I'd like a conversation about it one day, and look, the bigger thing for me is, and I say this, I've said this, in my personal life as well, is people, a lot of people will have a view on me, and a lot of people say things about me, and a lot of people will say things on the internet or whatever in interviews, and that's fine. If someone has a view on me, but they don't really know me, there's only so much you can take from that. My issue with this is people would think that Chris knows me. I'll be honest, Chris, in 9 years of knowing him outside of just the sport, I don't think he's ever said to me, "Hey, how are you, mate? Do you have family? Do you have a brother and sister?" He's never had a deep conversation with me. He doesn't know me. And that's fine. You don't have to know me, but obviously the public would have a perception that he knows enough about me to take the views he has. So for him to call him a scumbag, it actually gives it some weight. Yeah, call me a scumbag, it gives it weight. Whereas if like random guy off the street says Frank's a scumbag, it's like, well, who cares? But this guy, people will go, oh, he must know him. So for him to say he's a scumbag, he must be a scumbag. Look what he's done to his brother-in-law. So yeah, it's different. But I have to deal with that, I suppose.
Out of curiosity, bit of a tangent, and you'll see why I'm getting to it. When was the first time you ever did an interview like this?
In what any interview?
Yeah, from like a boxing standpoint of talking about schedule and stuff like that. Can you pinpoint like,
I guess 9 years, 8 years ago,
can
something
I
like that.
ask
Nine.
why? Because I look at you now, and I suppose a lot of this has come through like the media and what people have to say, etc. But actually, you're kind of someone who pulls the strings behind closed doors for the most part. Obviously, sometimes there's someone who needs to go in and do the press conference when there's a show clash or Eddie's not there. But kind of why?
Why did I do it? I mean, I suppose as the business grew, there was more requirement for me to do things if Eddie couldn't do it. Look, I will never be Eddie. I can't talk like him. He's very good. He's the best at what he does. Not just because I've worked for him since I was 16, but no one comes close to him. No other promoter. Um, and I get compared to him. The problem is with this kind of stuff, you only get better the more you do it. So unless you do more and more, you're always going to be limited in your ability, as with anything in life. So if I didn't do more and more, I'd never. It's kind of a double-edged sword because if you do one and you're shit, everyone goes, "Well, he's useless," and it's going to take time to progress to get to where you need to get to. So I guess there's more a necessity of having to do it, more than anything else.
From an operational standpoint, though, your job, you'd be able to kind of do what you do, very much work pulling the strings behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, I still do. That's mine. It's 24/7,
Yeah,
across everything we do. This doesn't change anything. It just means I come off here and I get back to doing what my actual job is, you know. But I don't mind this. I don't mind this. I used to hate it because when you do it at the start, like I say, you make mistakes and they're there for everyone to see. But the more you do stuff, just like you in your job, the more you do it, the less nervous you get, the more comfortable you get, and you just get on with it. But unfortunately, all of our mistakes are filmed. So it's like, ha ha ha, do you remember this idiot when he said this? Whereas now I'm quite comfortable in what I say. And if you don't like it, it is what it is.
is there one that sticks out to mind? A bit of
Yeah,
a
I mean, I said about builders once, but if I would have said
oh
accountants, no
yeah,
one would have had a
forgot
problem
about
with it.
that. Was
Yeah, I
that in
mean,
Orlando?
it was actually. It was
Yeah.
2 o'clock in the morning. It was in Orlando. Um, Do you know what? That's an example though, where people don't see, like we live in a world and you have to live up to what you're dealing with, right? I remember I flew back from Orlando and I'd done that at 2 o'clock in the morning. And it was actually the week my nan passed away, right? And I was at the hospital and I was on my Twitter. And this is the first time, by the way, I'd ever experienced anything like it, where it was just like, what a wanker, what a prick, like constantly. And that was, I don't care about any, you know me long enough, don't really care about anything. That was like, oh my goodness.
You know what it is? I think sometimes when you have an absolute proper howler and then a million people are just firing it all at once and you're tired and fucking miserable, that's when it kind of kicks in a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And you go, oh, this shit. Um, but over time, I think it's more for me. I go back to the point. It's more the people who know me. If someone who knows me says something, I'll go and I don't agree with them. I'll be like, wait a minute. But for the most part, I couldn't care less because it's like you don't know me. You know, you don't know me to judge me. You don't know anything about me. You watch me, and people might think, "Oh, he's arrogant," but it's actually I've got quite a dry sense of humor, just sarcastic constantly, and people take that as arrogance, maybe sometimes across these things.
Sorry, I just thought we'd go on a bit of you do so many
That's right.
interviews and we're on a bit of a, do you know what I mean? So I just thought it'd be a bit of a chin wag as much as we will discuss
Anything, mate.
topics as well. I've spent a bit of time around you and your friends, etc. I've never seen you get, do you know, like when you're just not on the few occasions you do, because you are working around the clock and around the world, etc. But when you're out with the lads specifically, or the lads and the girls, etc., do you ever get people coming up to you and hounding you or?
Mm. It's been a bit more since the Netflix show. I'll be honest with
Okay.
you. Um, and different type. I was in the pub the other day, and someone went, "Oi, you're that Netflix geezer." I was like, "Well, I'm not the Netflix geezer. No, I
One of
mean,
them.
yeah, one of tens of
One of
thousands."
millions. Even I consider that. Yeah.
um, so yeah, it's been different since then. Um, Also, the worst thing is, I've got to be honest with you, I don't have a great memory, right? And
Oh, yeah,
you
it's
know,
peak, isn't it? Yeah.
when people go to you, Frank, and you go, "Do I know this person?" Like,
Yo.
oh, yeah, and I go, "I haven't got a clue. Like, should I know them?
And
Like,
you just
or
kind
they,
of blag your way through it.
yeah." And
Yeah.
then but then you have a conversation. You think sometimes you have the conversation. You go, "Oh, that makes sense. It's this person." But I think my memory's not as good as it used to be.
I think when you do as much as you do and you're 100 mile an hour, then things will just blur into one. Anyway, let's move on to some boxing topics. Anthony Joshua return this year. Eddie said it won't be Ghana, it won't be Monaco, but there is still a chance it's this year, but most likely for February 2026.
Hmm. Look, it was always about with Anthony Joshua making sure he came back into the sport 100% and not rushing it. He's done so much in the sport. This decision now is the biggest decision, and the route he goes now is going to define, really the last part of the journey. Um, and yeah, I think you're going to see. I'm excited to see him back whenever that is. If that's this year, if that's February, I'm just excited to see him back, and he still has so much, I believe, to offer the sport. And I've said it so many times recently. We're in a fickle sport where people are written off. He got knocked out by a 17 stone man. Oh, that's the sport we're in. You want to test yourself. You never want to shy away from challenges. He should be respected rather than people say, "Oh, he's finished." And we're probably all guilty again of saying that. I've probably said over the years, like fighters shouldn't carry, or in my view, but actually, if you test yourself at the highest level time and time again, and you don't always come up on top, that shouldn't be the end of you. So I'm excited about what he's still got to offer.
Your tenure in boxing has been throughout the Anthony Joshua era, from being there for his medicals, for his professional debut, to being at this moment here. Doesn't have long left. I find
Who,
that
me or
Anthony
him?
Joshua.
All right.
It's a little sad. I suppose the same with Tyson Fury as well. How does British boxing recoup and I suppose get back to the highs of the era that we've had here? As it's inevitable that there'll be a little dip.
Yeah, yeah, but look, there's always going to be new people coming through. Look at probably who was it before AJ? David Hay was probably like the pay-per-view trailblazer at the time before that. And you look at then the years before that, the likes of Joe Calzaghe, Ricky Hatton, like over a period of time. Um, and there's always going to be new people come through, and when you're sitting here today, you go, who is that? There's loads of people it could be. There's loads of fighters it could be. And I think boxing's such actually a hard sport to, because I always say, you look at Tony Bellew, a perfect example, when we promoted his last fight and he was on pay-per-view in his last four fights, went on to become a Hollywood superstar in the Creed franchise. But when we first signed him and he sold 1,000 tickets at the Echo Arena, did I think he'd do that? No. Like, so
Sometimes they
it's,
emerge.
yeah, and it's same with the likes of what Josh Warrington went on to do, Lee Wood went on to do, like so many names like that. So I think I think we're in a great time for British boxing. I think there's a lot of exciting fighters coming through. I think there's fighters, like you look at Pat Brown, who boxes this weekend. I think he could fight for a world title not too long from now and become one of those fighters, but there's so many like that.
What's the crack while you talk about light heavyweights and world titles with Bivol and Beterbiev? We're hearing reports of potentially a fight in Moscow. We know that there was some injury hold-ups and stuff like that. You are very close to the Bivol camp. Are you able to let us know there?
He's back doing light training now. Obviously had his injuries, had his operations, and the aim was always to get back in the ring early part of 2026. That's still the focus. No news just yet. Nothing set yet. The Beterbiev fight is a huge fight, and a fight I believe we will see, but nothing done yet.
Uh, Dillian White versus Derek Chisora 3 looks like it will land at some point. I don't know when we expect the announcement for. We also expect that to be pay-per-view. Remember quizzing you and Eddie a couple of times as to, I suppose, over the course of the last couple of years, really, about making that third fight. The appetite was never really there. Why was that, and what are your thoughts if that fight gets announced? I know you're a good friend of Derek's.
Yeah, look, Derek's a very close friend of mine. It's got a lot of history. It was two brilliant fights, the first two. You know, Derek's obviously coming off the back of, impressive run, and he wants to bow out with his 50th fight. Dillian coming off the back of that Moses Italma fight. I think it'll be a very interesting fight. I think it'll be a close fight. And like I say, a fight where a lot of people have interest because the rivalry goes back, what, 8 years? The first one, off the top of my head, something like that, 8, 9 years. And then
2016, yeah,
yeah,
nine
so
years, yeah.
yes, yeah. And when you think back to that fight, and then
I
you
was
think
in
back to the
year 8.
rematch, oh yeah,
Yeah,
mental,
yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
mental. Um, so look, it's got a lot of fans behind that fight. It's different times, of course it is. It's 9 years later. Um, but it's about making fights, intriguing fights, and close fights, and I think that will be a close matchup.
Despite
Derek will have a go at me for saying it will be close.
Despite being a global sport dominant, which you are, does Matchroom feel like it's in a bit of a rebuilding phase in terms of the crop of talent you've got? You've got a lot of exciting and emerging stars. You look at your Giorgio Visioli headlining at York Hall on that Wednesday card, your Leo Atangs, your TMA Aitons, etc. Almost similar to kind of maybe the Frank Warren COVID era where you had your Hamza Shirazes coming up, you had your Daniel Dubois, etc. Do you kind of see yourself in that era as well?
Look, I think you're always looking at what's next. Of course you are. But, like you look at Lewis Crocker, Paddy Donovan, 20,000 people in a stadium just a month ago. Lewis Crocker becoming world champion. Look at Dave Allen in front of 10,000 people. And like Dave Allen's looked at, I even said it, he's been around the sport so long, you forget he's only 33 years old, which is quite young for a heavyweight, you know. But because he's been around so long, you don't really think of him as sort of I think he's could be coming into his prime more than ever because he's taking it seriously. You look at Ben Whitaker, our latest signing, who headlines on November 29th. You know, look at the Monaco show, stacked top to bottom, and then all of the young talent, like you say. So I think we're in a great place. I think we've got great fighters who are ready to go now in big fights. We've got great fighters coming through. I mentioned Pat Brown obviously earlier as well, someone who is going to move very quickly because he's just so good. Leo Atanga, you mentioned TMA 8 and Giorgio Visioli, as you say, he headlines. Look at George Liddard a few weeks back against Kieran Conway. Like, it's always, you're always working through what's next. But I truly believe we're and feel we're in a good place.
Are there background plans in place for, like, I suppose 2026 as a whole? I was speaking to Eddie. I said last year there was so much with Riyadh season and His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh, and probably the novelty of disrupting the market as well. Now Riyadh's asserted itself as a global sport dominator, so it doesn't necessarily have to do that. But do we see another surge again next year in your eyes?
It's there's boxing as a sport always has new people come in investing huge sums of money, and it's had that for years. It's had that for years and years and years and years, even before I was even involved in boxing. Um, so I think they'll continue to do what they're doing. Huge shows. We've got Eubank Benn, obviously the rematch in 2 weeks' time. Um, but yeah, we're all looking at our own product, saying what can we do to deliver bigger and better nights. Of course we are. And I think there's a lot of exciting nights to come. We're already looking at our 2026 schedule, some big fight nights. And as much as we're a global business, our heart is always in the UK, of course. It's where we really started again. And we never take our eye off the ball, and we'll continue to grow, develop, and build talent and build the biggest nights in the sport.
I don't want to go too much on this whole Dana White Eddie Hearn back and forth, for I suppose actually lack of it in the last couple of weeks. Really, it will always be a talking point. But is Dana really in the picture? I mean, we know about this TKO deal with Paramount for 26, but as it stands, I mean, it's only really been that Canelo Crawford show, which, let's be real, was His Excellency Turkey Al Sheikh event. As of right now, is he someone that you see in the picture?
You'd be foolish, I'd say, to say he wouldn't be in the picture because they're great at creating brands. They're going to create a big brand in boxing, of course they are, but they're not going to be able to recreate what they've done in MMA. It's just the reality of it. And it's exciting, having new people come into the business. But he thinks he can come in and completely change it. And I don't look, he's done much more in business than me. So I'm not, I'm 33 years old. So I'm by no means being disrespectful. I've worked in boxing, nearly my whole adult life. Um, and I think, boxing's completely different from MMA. And they did what they did with MMA at a time where the sport wasn't a focus, but they built that. But they're coming into a sport in boxing that has had hundreds of years of heritage, has had huge promotional players involved over the years, and they're going to come in and try and change everything, to suit them as a business, not necessarily fighters, but to suit them. Um, but we're not going anywhere, and you can say, what have we done in the last 15 years? Well, we've delivered some of the biggest events in sport, in multiple countries and sold out stadiums all around the world, um, and broke pay-per-view records for show. I can sit and list you 50 shows that have been like amazing nights. Probably I've worked on 400 or 500 events in the last 15 years. So we've done great things for the sport of boxing, as have other people as well, as have other promoters. And yeah, I think it's probably a bit naive to think you're just going to walk in and go, "Thanks very much, see you later, guys. We're taking over." But at the same time, they will create a massive brand. It is what they do. Look at what they've done with Power Slap. They've created a brand with something there. So yeah, it's interesting.
Francis, I'm going to love you and leave you and let you get on with your evening. I'm going to go and polish, I say evening, it's probably afternoon over there. I'm going to go and polish a couple of Guinness off. What is on the agenda for you? No doubt a nice bit of dinner later on, but what else?
I'm gonna go for. I went and did some weights this morning. I'm gonna go for a run, slow run in the gym, do some abs, and then go and eat 4 steaks, some faff and wild potatoes, a glass of red wine, and undo all of the work of the day.
Get up the tank.